Recording acknowledged.
All right. I hope this is recording to the cloud server versus my phone, but I guess I'll deal with that on the back end. Shane, welcome to the show here, bud. It's kind of a new format, new attempt at doing this. I don't know what all you can hear background noise with this headset, but I'm here in my backyard with two of my four dogs. And if you can hear the chickens in the distance, we got a half dozen of those back there. Lots of background noise compared to my usual, which is sort of hospital room, asylum looking in my other podcast. But my initial question for you was going to be, because we met for the first and only time at the baby shower there on the North Shore. If we met before that, I do apologize. You may remember, I do not, over the years. But my first question was going to be, how do you tie into this friend group, this family? But I think instead, I'd rather just sort of capture your story and work our way to that.
Okay.
So tell me about where you were born and life growing up.
I was born in Metairie, Louisiana at Lakeshore Hospital whenever it apparently was still only 2 floors. It's 4 floors now. So I'm 45. That happened in 1979. And I lived my first 23 years in Ponchatoula, Louisiana with, I'm an only child. We lived on the highway. I didn't have any neighbors, so that allowed me to spend gratuitous amounts of time alone in the room, which I think cultivated a great imagination and the propensity to never experience boredom the way that other people experience boredom. So I'm not shackled by that. But around 23, I went to. So
tell me about life in Ponchatoula in the 80s.
Well, I wasn't really. I mean, it was good. It was definitely a more simple time. It was really in the 90s that I could speak to Ponchatoula because I stayed at the house when I was younger. But when I got to be about 10 or 11, we were able to, me and my friend group, I have a really good friend group. Only about two of them I still talk to, of course.
I'm losing your signal now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, around when I was 11 or 12 in 6th grade, I hooked up with the friend group that I still kind of roll with today. So let me see. Anyway, we had the freedom to just kind of walk around. It was safe enough. Our parents allowed it that we would ride our bike and walk all around Ponchatoula. And it is very, in hindsight and seeing how the world seems to be, it seems as if it's a kind of traditional slice of Americana growing up in Ponchatoula. I mean, it maybe had at the time a population of 5,000 or 5,200 or something like that. And so it was very peaceful, calm, and ideal. It gave me the deep nervous system impression that despite the media's best efforts, that the world is in fact a safe place, because that was the whole first many years of experience we had. So Ponchatoula was a very good and idyllic place to grow up. I mean, we had an ice cream parlor where the dude made his own ice cream and, a bunch of wholesome stuff like that. It's all antique shops and other things. Plus the Strawberry Festival was a pretty big deal. I think I've been to every one of those except for 2 or 3 in my whole life. Mainly for the ones I missed, I was away on travel for work. But anyway, besides that, growing up there was fantastic. Yeah.
Well, how was school and what led you? I believe you told me. In fact, let me see if I can pull that up and read it. Was that on my other phone? If you want to just give a brief rundown, kind of what you said to me. Yeah. Work me through life from 1979 to 1998.
Not a whole lot happened. We did spend 2 years in the late 80s between the ages of 8 and 10. I did move to Virginia, but it was of little overall consequence to the story. Like I lived in the house I grew up in until I was 8. And then we moved away until I was about 10 and a half because my dad is a carpenter. And my mom at the time, she could be a single mom. So she was a stay-at-home mom with me. But the housing market tanked in the late 80s. I don't know why. I don't remember why. I wasn't tuned in enough back then to that kind of thing. But we moved to Virginia briefly for 2.5 years, and then we just moved back into the same house. So it was of essentially no consequence to the story itself, but the first, let me see, up into 98, that I graduated high school in 97. So really it was just hopping between all of the various schools that the Tangipahoa Parish school system has in offer. But I met my friend group in 6th grade when I moved back, and I still talk to most of those guys today. So it was really just us hanging out, being free. There was one friend in particular whose house we spent most of our time at. And yeah, it was really good times, easy times.
Well, what was school for you? You were at Southeastern for quite some time.
Well, I've graduated in from Ponchatoula High School in 1997, and and I put absolutely no effort into it, and I got a 3. I ended with a 3.0. My friend and I were right at the edge of the honor cord people, the people that we got the white honor cord for maintaining a B average. But none of us ever really put any effort in the school because, well, it was really easy. We didn't have to, so that school intangible. But apparently, from what I've heard, the school systems, at least back then, Ponchatoula was one of the best schools around.
Looks like I lost you again. I may need to change positions.
Okay.
I'm not sure where we got. I heard, I think in the early 90s. It's kind of hit and miss.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll just start at the best place to start, which was the beginning. So around the early 90s, in 6th grade, I met up with my near and dear friend group. There were 5 of us, and we stayed friends. I mean, eventually through life, most of them have eventually dropped away, but we still talk, once a month or so as a group. We don't hang out as much because life happens. But anyway, I hooked up with those guys, 30 plus year friendships now around the early 90s. I think I lost you again. Hello? Seems that way.
Hey, but if you can hear me, it's. Let me try this. Get set up for my other phone. I'll send you a new email.
Okay. Yeah. Let's end this one and then we'll try from the other device, right?
Yeah. Let me get logged in from there, start a new meeting, and I'll re-invite you from that one.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, Shane, sorry for all the confusion here this morning trying to get this thing lined up. Obviously,
Yes.
a change of venue and hardware for me here, but little neighbor kid knocked on the door just now selling some premium lemonade for $2 a shot.
Nice.
So I had to step next door and give some money to a kid raising money for, I'm sure, a great cause.
Absolutely.
We were. I couldn't tell you where we left off. It was the audio kept dropping in and out, but we were telling your story essentially from 1979 to 1998 before you arrived at Southeastern.
Yes.
We made it to the 90s, I believe, when the audio was cutting out. But if you want to kind of restart, tell the story of your family history, how they got to Louisiana, if you know that, a few generations back, and just kind of work your way up to Southeastern.
I do not have the information about prior generations.
Were your parents from the North Shore area?
Well, dad is born and raised in New Orleans, and mom is from Columbia, Mississippi. So about an hour and a half between Macomb and Hattiesburg, really kind of almost centrally located off of Highway 98. So, but I don't know before that where we came from, but that's where my folks are from. But I was born in Metairie at Lakeside Hospital and spent my first 23 years, sans 2.5 years. I spent my first 23 years in Ponchatoula living with my folks in the same house. And for 2 years, but in the late 80s, well, I think we're jumping ahead. Anyway, I was born and I spent the first 8 years of life in a house in Ponchatoula with no neighbors, and I'm an only child. So it gave me a lot of time, just me in my room, hanging out, developing and living in imagination.
Well, you said no neighbors. How close was the nearest?
Well, I, I did have cousins that lived next door, and they moved away when we were about 4 or 5. So it's really all in the ephemeral of childhood, where I don't really have a whole lot of memories of it, and it didn't really impact the overarching the development of the person that the story is about as much. And my grandma lived there too, so no peer neighbors, I'll say. Family, but no peers. So kind of homogenous in that sense.
Well,
But
how was it? We were getting into, or go ahead. We were getting into school and stuff before, I
yeah,
think.
yeah. Well, at around age 8 in the late 80s, I was born in 79. I'm 45 now. In the late 80s, the economy kind of tanked. And my dad was a carpenter, and my mom was a stay at home mom. And we didn't have enough money, so we had to move to Virginia because work was scarce around here in construction. So we stayed there for 2.5 years. And at age 10, we moved back into the same house that I grew up in. So the only thing that gave me really, I mean, besides experience itself, was that I became much more resistant to cold weather after that, because, we don't really get that cold here. But our cold is cold, humid cold is bone chilling. So, any rate, after age 10, I was around sixth grade. I met up with my lifelong friend group, who I'm still in touch with most of today. Most of us are still on good terms. All of us are still alive. We don't all necessarily interact terribly commonly, but they're still my best friends overall. 30-year friendships are important. So we grew up in Ponchatoula, where we could just wander around town. That's all we did all day, is wander around town and ride our bikes to each other's houses. And they had one friend in particular whose house we spent lots of time at as a group. I mean, there were always 5 or 10 friends there, and it was a really good time. It gave me, I think, as I said earlier, the overall impression that we live in a safe and decent world. At least at that time. I don't know, maybe the same could be said now, and we're just looking at the wrong stuff statistically. But anyway, that was kind of that part of life. School was very easy. I wasn't necessarily bored, because I don't get bored because of those initial starting conditions. Growing up as a kid with no peers as neighbors, just in a room by yourself, I don't experience boredom like other people do. I'm content. Sometimes I'll go 3 or 4 or 5 days at the house and realize I haven't even said a word. So a lot of that stuff has translated into, it's given me a really good setup for what I'm doing now, which is unemployed author. But after high school, I went to SLU. I started SLU in December of 98. So no, not December, spring of 98. I graduated in 97 and I took one semester off and started school. First, I was a journalism major. Then I was a computer science major, but I hated programming. And then it was just programming in C plus, which was even a particular kind of awful. It's not that it's awful. It's just I don't enjoy that kind of activity. And then I was a liberal arts major with a concentration in history. And then I was a computer science major again, but by then they had moved to Java programming, which I equally disliked. I really wanted to do hardware fabrication. I thought hardware was interesting, but um, a regular standard college isn't the place to get that kind of education. That's more, I didn't realize, the highest end of electrical engineering and whatnot. But after that, let's see, I took breaks intermittently throughout the college career. Around 23 is when I moved out of my parents' house into an apartment in Hammond, right down the road from the college. And I was going to college on and off for the majority of a pretty long time. I went from spring of 98 until December of 2010 and only ended up with, I say only, I got an associate's degree in general studies after that. It was kind of interesting how that came about too, because college never really factored into my career. My greatest scholastic achievement was getting a C in Calc 2 with a very tough but fair teacher. And that's still my greatest scholastic achievement because the associate's degree, the 2-year degree in general studies that took me 12 years to get, didn't really factor in. But also, it was interesting the way that I came about that is because I hadn't been to school for 3 years, and I got a letter in the mail that said I could graduate without any further coursework. And they had a tagline to it that was Operation Win-Win. And anyway, I was the recipient of that degree because they did a sniff of their databases to see who they could graduate without any further coursework because their state funding was based upon how many graduates they made. So really the college career, I mean, while I value the experience, I had over 120 hours in credits. It was spread across 6 different majors. At one time, actually, I forgot about these two. I was an English major and a physics major at the same time going through those curriculums, but I realized I'm more of an armchair scientist, and the act of gathering science was less interesting than just reading already digestible science. Any rate, so that was sort of my educational background. I also had a natural aptitude toward computers. I got a computer at about age 15 and really was naturally good at that. And so I ultimately monetized that hobby and have had computer jobs for the better part of 20 years. But I realized after a time, I mean, for the last 13 years, okay, well, we're jumping ahead a little. At 23, I lived in various apartments around Hammond for numerous years. And let's see, this was around 2011. I got a job doing cybersecurity, and it was a travel sort of job. So the work wasn't here. And I have spent the last 13 years on work travel. I received my last paycheck November 15th of last year. And I have left the career world to become an unemployed. I refer to myself as an unemployed author because what people do is really doesn't define them. So I want to use disarming terms to refer to what I do because it really, titles are typically irrelevant to the day-to-day activity of whatever our jobs are anyway. So currently that's what I'm doing and where I'm at. I'm currently an unemployed author living back in Hammond because I felt that this is where I fit. This is where I was grown, and being away did, like, all the discomfort that was felt from being perpetually on travel really made me appreciate the place that I fit. So not fit in, but the place that, had a me-shaped hole in it. Right. So that's the brief history of this
Was
incarnation.
was the tie-in to the family, the friend group here, was that travel gig with Brett? And what he
Yeah.
does? Okay.
Yeah. So that's how I got the job. And that's how you asked earlier how I was connected to the family, Annie and Lewis. I knew Brett and Lewis from about in our college years. I'm a little old. I'm, I think 2 or 3 years older than that. No, let's see. They were born in 83. So I'm about 4 years older. I'm just under 4 years older. Um, which gave me good leverage against Brett because I could always call him a millennial and it would make him mad. But I'm Gen X, so he couldn't fight it. But anyway, that's how I met. I met them at Augustine's here in Hammond because we were both door guys there. Actually, Brett and I were really close friends for a long time. We sort of bonded. We had a bad breakup at the same time, and we sort of bonded over that and got pretty close about it. But anyway, I met them at Augustine's many years ago, and we all actually, Brett Lewis and I all worked at Neil Corp together. We all kind of traveled to jobs like, oh, hey, it's pretty good over here. You guys come on. So we worked at Neil Corp together for 2, 3, 4 years, depending. Lewis left before. Lewis was there first, and he got us all in. And then Brett left that job to do the cybersecurity job, and we had a contract that opened up and they needed a person. So Brett called me in for that. And then it turns out I did it for 13 years. So yeah, that is how that came about.
And the income from that travel and all the benefits over 13 years, I mean, that has created the opportunity for you where you can be an unemployed author, as you say, for some period of time.
Well, yeah. That part is kind of accidental, but yes. No, I mean, the income was great, and I was on travel in perpetuity. I had a house here in Hammond that I owned from, like, I bought it the month after Katrina, and I sold it in 2017 because I was away for too long, and things break when you're unattended houses break down. Entropy is a bitch on unattended houses. It really, you can see it in action. Fortunately, the cure for entropy, but this is a later discussion, is little tender loving care itself. They teach us about entropy separate from evolution, and as if evolution doesn't bring order into the universe, but that's a whole separate thing. Anyway, I had a house in Hammond and I sold it, and I mean, I didn't make any money off of it. I essentially lived there for free minus the repairs I put into it. I didn't make a thing off of it, but I lived there for 12 years and made $1,000 off of the sale. So it wasn't too bad. Let's see. Yeah, I had the thing is though, is that your spending matches your lifestyle. So, and I've never been a saver. This is one of the things I started philosophically analyzing, right? Like I can't save. I don't save. I cannot spend, but I can't save. Well, I say I can't. It's not that I can't. I've never succeeded at saving. So I didn't save any of that money. I bought ridiculous shit, right? Like I have a blacksmith friend in Florida. I've got at least 3 handmade blacksmith weapons. I bought swords and shit, right? Video game systems and computer hardware. So I never really saved any of it. It was only through this whole unemployed author thing is truly a leap of faith in that I cashed out my 401k so that I would have a good down payment on a house so that my monthly note would be much less and there would be less of a burden for monthly income. And I still have some of that left that I'm going to cash out, and I'm going to get a good tax return. But as of right now, I'm a broke unemployed author, really. I mean, I can make it. I can pay my bills until 1 or 2 or 3 of these monies come in. But as of right now, this is like a leap of faith has to be fully a leap of faith, But I do have backup plans and safety nets should things fall apart. So, I mean, I did pretty high level cybersecurity stuff for 13 years, and that's all. I can always get a job with that, probably even with the same dude because we're really dear friends. So I left only because I was 80% happy too doing everything I did on travel. I just thought I could do it. I could be happier 99% of the time. I was becoming disproportionately angry when I was asked to do work, which I was finding to be bored. That's what I realized, and where I was going with the whole thing is that because I monetized a hobby, because it was easy for me, by the end of it, I was bored to tears. I haven't challenged myself in my entire life. And that's what becoming an unemployed author was about. And if I have to whittle down my finances to nothing to get my start, then I'll do that. And that's fine, because a leap of faith requires actual faith. And so we're just trusting in the universe and the processes, and that I do have ideas that I think are good. And that I write every day. So writing isn't the problem. I'm creating every day. So that was part of it. Once you step away from the careerism, if it no longer suits you, which for me it didn't, and for a lot of people it does, but I had to give myself this space in order to really get the ideas flowing, you know?
Have you had any success publishing anything, or are
I,
you sort of building a following under that pseudonym on Facebook?
Neither.
Okay.
The Facebook stuff, those are just my personal writings. I find interesting stuff and then I write about it. I am gonna I am I created a Substack account the other day, but I haven't published any writings on it. But currently the main writing project that I'm doing is a book. It's a nonfiction. It's a bit of a philosophy book, but I think it's it reminds me, one of my favorite authors it's sort of a philosophy book in the same way that Robert Anton Wilson was a philosophy writer. Excuse me, in that it's hopefully a bit of a sledgehammer to break down dogmatic limitations to specific idea sets, right? Like whatever our beliefs are, whatever we believe in, that's just typically where we've chosen to stop, right? Like that's not the final word in the universe. And anybody on the planet's belief in anything is not the final word on the universe, right? That's just where we chose to stop exploring, And there is a place for that too, but not in science, not in philosophy, not in anything like that, not in any dynamic system. There is no place to stop. It's going to continually change and evolve along with our knowledge of it. So yeah, anyway, so I have an idea for 3 of them. It's going to be a trilogy, I think. The first book is called To F the Ineffable, which EFF, To F the Ineffable. I like to write about the things beyond which language can express, right? And there's a lot of that. I think, there is a point in which language fails, in which science even fails to describe something, right? Like poets, for example, have been able to explain the scent of a rose much more satisfactorily than scientists have, right? It's all just different frameworks to view the world from. And so that's kind of, I liked for it to be belief agnostic and because I don't know what's what in the world half the time. So that's kind of what my current writing project is.
And has that is it presented more as almost like a college course, like a textbook, or
Oh,
is there a
no,
story
no, no.
that embeds these thoughts in it?
It's part autobiographical and part just like starting with a premise already at a very advanced, wild, sort of already questionably, debatably real or not, and exploring it as far as we can from there. Eventually, you'll see whenever you're trying to explain something, especially the more nuanced it is, the more words you have to throw at it, and the more it starts to sound like nonsense. The more we add concept to something, the less it resembles reality itself, right? So I like to write until the words, like if I read my own writing and I'm like, oh, this sounds like nonsense, then I know that I lost the reader at least 2 or 3 paragraphs before. So I always kind of use that as a measure to prune the writing too. So any rate, so it's kind of more that it's a little autobiographical, but it's really just a lot of like it's a lot of theories on quantum. Well, it's a combination of theories because I see it all. It's all really one topic expressed through different linguistic frameworks, right? Up to and including linguistics itself. So I do a lot of neuro-linguistic stuff in there, a lot of tricks, a lot of like, let's see, I don't know how to phrase that. Anyway, there's a lot of neuro-linguistics and quantum physics and spirituality and meditation and prayer and magic and psychic shit and UFOs too. So it's a little bit of everything. It's the kind of thing where I hope when people read it and then they see my picture, they're like, what kind of book would you think that guy would write? And it's that one. It's the book that it's really truly for audience of one too. Like I read back the stuff and I greatly enjoy it. It's for me. I'm writing it for me. And that's how I think all good art should be. If you write to pander to someone's opinion, then someone else might not like it, but if you write for yourself, some people are still not going to like it, but some people will. So I think authenticity and art for audience of one is the way to do art. So I approach it like that. I try to make it crazy. I try to alienate the reader. I beat on their brains and their dogmas and their preconceived notions of things, and I point out how much cognitive dissonance exists in the world and how we can't really be certain about anything, but not to the point of solipsism either, right? If that makes sense. Solipsism meaning, the only thing that exists is myself and everything outside might be a robot, right? Like the German philosophers went really hard into that for a while. And I don't think it's that either. So it's a little bit of everything, right?
Well,
In a fully interconnected universe, every topic can be connected to any other topic. It may just be like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but in a fully interconnected universe, you can draw a line from anything to anywhere else. And I try to do that.
how far along are you with this project?
I mean, I'm generating raw material every day. My problem is that the writing new stuff is the sexy bit, and the sitting down and editing and compiling is not the sexy bit. So I spend very little time doing that part. But my raw material document, and I have a lot of other ideas too. This is planned to be a trilogy in philosophy. I do have ideas for other books, but my raw material document is well over 1,700 pages right now. Just, there was one month where I think I wrote 120 pages of new material, and that sort of flow, it really is hard to keep my head around. And if I step away for too long, I have to reread and revisit the whole thing. But as it is right now, I have about 250 pages into first draft, and about 130 of those pages are in the second draft. And I'm doing my second reread to bring it all up to second draft. But I got stuck on a part. There was a part I wasn't satisfied with the way it was written. And so I stepped back. I find it's really useful having this kind of time as an unemployed author. I mean, I have 3 or 4 other side things that I'm working on. And whenever I hit a wall, I walk away from it for 1 or 2 months, and then I come back with fresh eyes, and the solution is always there. At least in the next way forward until the next wall hits. And I've been cycling between all of these projects as such. But as of right now, I'm feeling particularly motivated to start doing the sit down edit and compile, because that's really all. It's all pretty well written. If I could just sit down for enough hours and do that. But, one thing I've recognized is that I'm thinking about it wrong. And see, this is how neuro-linguistic reprogramming works. Like I'm describing it like it's such a slog or an unpleasant task, but it's just writing in another form. And if I sit down and do it, I enjoy it, but I talk about it as a slog. And so then it feels like a slog. Like the first thing I refer, like, oh, that's not the sexy part, right? New creation is the sexy part, but the putting it together is also sexy. See, really, it just depends on what word you use to describe things as to how the reality itself plays out. So I've kind of spoken myself into that being an unpleasant task, and I'm trying to do a little neuro-linguistic reprogramming, and that's a big part of what I talk about in the book too. I do a lot of neuro-linguistic reprogramming exercises like that. It's as simple as describing something with just a different set of word. It doesn't change what's being referred to, but it changes your outlook on it entirely just by using different words. So
Yeah. This podcast project has been developed sort of similarly, where it became a second job. It became more than a hobby. This part, talking to people, asking them questions, diving into stories, this is the fun part.
right.
But going back to edit, if it's 30 minutes, not so bad. But if it's 3 hours, you know what I mean? Just
Sure.
this has certainly become a second job for little reward, we'll say. Um, you mentioned we've been trying to line this up for quite some time. I'm glad we finally could, but that you had some ideas to maybe frame up something to move forward on a separate type of project. Did you have a podcast in mind for yourself?
No, I'm not as interested in that kind of format, but I think like the way that the writing process itself goes, I think, and you know what, I loathe the word content and the way that it's used today, right? Because the word content, back when we first got cell phones, I was 23 when I got my first cell phone. And I was one of those jerks that would, like, we had 140 character limit. I would 139, 104. I would rewrite my sentences just to I would use it every time, because just because communications are cheap and easy doesn't mean they should be devoid of content. The word content used to mean something of substance, and now it means packing peanuts, right? Like when we talk about content, that word has been co-opted and it's turned into the opposite of its meaning. It's so Orwellian, and I'm trying to reclaim that. But anyway, I think when I get a good flow going, I might start recording that in some capacity, interspersed with like cat videos and shit, because I have two really cute cats whose behaviors are getting more and more complex. It's interesting. I'm doing experimentations with that too. Everything in life is a yoga. Everything can be an experiment. And so, now that I have all this time, I just kind of follow the whims like that, and it leads me to some interesting places. But I think I can start recording a bit of the writing process because I just voice dictate it to the phone. Or in the least, I might turn that into some sort of a script and then start making philosophy content of hopefully actual substance for the internet. So, but I haven't figured out the format. I'm good with computers, but I don't have any experience. I'm good with image editing too, but I don't have any experience with video editing. So that's been a bit of a hang up. I've got a nice 4K camera and a mic and I've got a setup, but so I was thinking about doing well, and I like to do book reviews and album reviews, and I do a lot of like meditation stuff. I thought about doing like streaming of stuff like that. I do a lot of Zen practices, like when I'm doing meal prep. All Zen, like Zen and light, all that is a very specific way of paying attention. And so I do live demonstrations of that. And while I'm doing my meal preps, I'd use it. Everything is a yoga, everything is a practice, and I do it accordingly anyway. So I thought about recording that because that's kind of like that's an interesting thing because I think Zen and enlightenment, I think everything is all of these things like magic and psychic shit and Zen, enlightenment, and all of these things, we put them on a pedestal, which makes them seem unattainable, when really all of those things are they're so common that we don't even notice them anymore, right? So I think that I would like to try to do video to demonstrate, right? Because I can say this is why I think that to speak about the things beyond language, which is direct experience, which can never truly be described. The words are the best we have. But the experience itself, like I always use this as an example, we would call this like a cup, right? Or a turf, whatever. We got a bunch of words to refer to this, but that's only referring to how we're using it. But if there were an intruder, I would turn this into a missile, right? This isn't cup, and I can say cup a million times, and this will never appear, right? The words only point at the reality. And that's the stuff that I really like to write about, is that, yeah.
Well, how does one go about describing the indescribable?
Well, with words, that's all we have, right? That's the best way for us to do it. But if you do it, so I do a lot of reading on this particular topic, and it's fresh in my mind. Apparently, Zen is the easiest to talk about, so I use it as an example. But I do study a lot of the like Tibetan Buddhism, which a lot of those books read like stereo instructions. I read a lot of the Hindu sacred texts. Those are the same kind of things. I mean, these guys were master psychologists and masters of the nervous system. They just couched it in the linguistic framework of their day, which is a spirituality, right? And so, how do you describe it? You use words. Now, Zen, I think, has a really interesting thing called a koan, Zen koans, Koan. And these are little short answerless riddles that are cunningly designed to knock you out of your conceptual attention, meaning like if I look at this and I think cup, that's conceptual attention. I'm not experiencing cup. Cup is just a sound. I'm experiencing this, right? To trick you out of that conceptual framework. It's like trying to look at the world again before you knew any of the words to describe any of it, right? That pure attention, right? And when you're so involved in a task, then, oh, wait, I'm getting sidetracked, right? How do we talk about the ineffable? Zen koans. It's like the sound of one hand clapping, right? There is no sound. What is Zen? It's the sound of one hand clapping. One of the most favorite koans, famous koans, was that a student walked in on the master and was like, hey, what's a lesson? Give me a lesson. And the master said, 3 pounds of flax, because at the moment he was counting flax. And he caught him in that moment of pure Zen attention. And that was the answer to the question. That was the lesson, right? Don't pay attention. It's not the words that he's saying. It's that mode of attention. And anyway, that's how we talk about it. Language is all we have to refer to it, but it's not it, because it can't be said, but we speak all around it. But the thing I found interesting, and this is why I like to read about it from so many different frameworks. I do read magic textbooks and ancient Hindu spirituals and Buddhist philosophy books and regular people philosophy books. And I like to read the accounts of the people who were purported to be enlightened masters, because even though they're all only speaking from their own linguistic framework, they're all pointing at the same thing. And if you read enough descriptions of the thing, then you start to see what the thing is, right? And that's that sort of what these guys, especially the Zen and Buddhist and Hindu guys, were talking about is really just the pure consciousness, right? That's all yoga really is. Yoga is sort of a combination of mastering your own psychology and mastering your own nervous system, so that then you get a deeper, more embedded experience of reality. It deepens your attention to the extent that you get a deeper experience, a more high fidelity daily experience of reality, just through opening, like if you're opening your consciousness to become more aware of the environment, the sort of unspeakable and unseeable things, which there are many there that we just don't see. Anyway, that's the meandering answer about how to talk about. You talk about it, you point at it, but you let people know, hey, this is not it. Don't consider the words as much as the idea behind the words, right? Strip the words are mine, the idea is not.
What ultimately is the point or aim of this trilogy? I mean, I know you said it's written for you, for the individual composing it, but
Mm-hmm.
for the potential audience out there, what is your ultimate intent, your hope, is it going to depend on their individual interpretations, their individual experiences, or is it story driven to a certain point, to understanding or to Zen?
No, it's not. There is a little, the first chapter, maybe 100 or 120 pages of it. I don't know what the final page count will be yet because it's still in process, but um, there is a little bit of autobiographical story. Really, I think it's kind of my shot at a sort of theory of everything sort of trilogy. I invent a lot. See, I know that. I don't know. I have a bunch of. I never really thought about what the overarching goal is. I mean, hopefully it's to be entertaining, or hopefully it's to maybe make people think about things a different way. One of my favorite things to do is really examine those sort of theories that we've just had for so long that we take for granted, that we think it's the be all end all, such as Big Bang. There's a lot of stuff there's a lot of new information that's throwing Big Bang even into question now. James Webb Telescope, I mean, they're seeing galaxies that are, I mean, insanely complex for the early universe, way more complex than we thought. But since time and space are that inseparable, the farther away we look, the more of I think the universe is not at all 13.7 billion years old. And sure, maybe there was a Big Bang, but there was another author who I really appreciated. He only had one book. His name was Itzhak Bentov. He proposed a moderately continuous bang, that our universe is being ejected out of a white hole and it comes around like a fountain and it's being sucked back into a black hole, which certainly, and that we're only in this one little section where we're at the turn where it looks like these things are accelerating away from us, but really they're just changing directions, right? It's about re-examining those things that we take for absolute granted dogmatically. So I renamed the Big Bang into the Big Blip just to sort of get people to think about it again. Because if we rename it, then we have to reconsider the whole topic, right? And I think that guy's theory accounts for the observations just as well as the Big Bang theory, and that all of these things are every single human idea is just a theory. Science and math is just a human behavior also, so I think it's important not to get stuck thinking that that's what is. I mean, it is what could be. I'm not saying that any of it is inaccurate, but the more observations we make, the less accurate it's starting to look. And it's really sort of to relentlessly, I love relentless self-inquiry, especially, relentlessly questioning things that you hold as being it. Again, that's like whatever we believe is just typically where we've chosen to stop. There is something beyond that which we believe. We used to believe that in spontaneous generation that flies would just spontaneously turn into flies until they put them in a covered thing and no flies grew, right? So any rate, stuff like that, right? There's a lot of stuff we used to believe, and that's where we chose to stop until it turned out to be otherwise. So that's kind of one of the main aims, is really just sort of present a whole bunch of preposterous sounding alternative theories that explain that touch all of the data points just as well. And yeah, I'm mostly uneducated, as discussed before. It took 12 years to get a 2-year associate's degree, right? I'm not particularly educated, but I read a lot. I've read a lot. I've read extensively on a lot of these topics, between science books and neurology books and psychology books and spiritual texts, I've read like 100 books. I really call it all consciousness studies because it really does seem that consciousness appears to be fundamental. And there's a lot of scientists who are coming around to say that, but I think the double slit experiment kind of proved 120 years ago that consciousness is fundamental. Because reality behaves differently whether we're looking at it or not. So then what is that but conscious, but like it's responding to the consciousness that's watching it, Experiments show the results that they show because they were designed by a conscious person to show those results, right? The confirmation is built into the experiment design. We're testing for that, and so reality shows us that. If you ask reality where the particle is, then it'll show you where the particle is. If otherwise, it's just in a waveform of probability, right? So it's kind of relentlessly examining everything. Nothing is off the table. Everything can be relentlessly examined, and I think it should be. So that's kind of part of it. One of my aims is one of the most influential books I've ever read was Robert Anton Wilson, a book called The New Inquisition. And he was very pro science, but it was a very anti-scientific establishment book. In 1955, there was a guy named Wilhelm Reich who created orgone energy, which is a whole thing. It has something to do with orgasms, which is too taboo here. Orgasms or lack thereof, semen retention. I don't know. I really don't know what it's about because his books got banned and burned back in the 50s. They found and they've all been republished since, but the government allegedly broke into his lab and smashed his equipment with fire axes, right? So there was a very anti-scientific, actual scientific thing that happens from time to time. And anyway, the book is called New Inquisition, and it's about not believing in anything dogmatically. And I think dogmatisms are that's just where we choose to stop. So I think that's one of my big aims with the book is just to present a bunch of crazy shit. Like, hey, think about it. Maybe if it expands, consciousness can be expanded through knowledge too. So that's a big part of it. Oh, I never thought of it like that.
Right. Well, here's an easy one for you.
Okay.
What is truth?
Truth. I don't know. I think it's that's not an easy one that humans have been writing about that since the dawn of time, Really, I think that is one of the sort of big questions, but it actually might be more simple than that. Truth is in a relativistic universe. Truth is in the eye of the beholder, we'll say. It's whatever any individual thinks it is. That's not what it actually is because it's relativistic, but I don't know. I don't know if that can be whittled down to a single thing, a single sentence.
I don't disagree. Just curious what your thoughts were.
Yeah.
What in your experience and your readings is the meaning or the driving force of human life as we know it?
The driving force of human life. I would say I think it's the same thing as any other human or any other life, right? It's all sort of the drive for survival. But we've long mastered that. We are masters of we're the most to our knowledge. We're the most adaptable species to ever exist. We've mastered every biome on the planet. We can live in freezing or hot. There are dudes that walk around in the desert. They make a living. They live there, right? So we've mastered every biome. So it's not just survival anymore. I think I don't remember what book this is from. I think it might be a Douglas Adams, but I'm gonna mangle it if I try to quote it. But I think we're at the. I think he said something. It was like, "How do we eat? Why do we eat? The three stages of society. What do we eat? How? Why do we eat? And what are we going to eat for dinner?" Right? And we're at the third one. We're at the "what do you want to eat for dinner" stage. So now I think, I mean, besides the fact that I think life itself is the point of life itself, and just being is fine, and there doesn't have to be a higher drive or goal to the species. I think we are kind of. I think we need to start. We spent too long in this sort of distracted malaise as a species, right? And we need to start answering and asking the big, difficult questions so that we can move forward. Although I don't think progress is the point either, but I think we're hung up on a lot of old negative things that we need to probably try to figure out how to move past in the more imminent sense. But of course, that's how it seems right now because times are turbulent, right? So I think there's also a difference between what it is and what we all think it should be. And I think from the Buddhists and the Hindu would say that everything is perfect as it is, that there is no other driving point, right? That we are all inseparable from this universe and that we all reflect the universe in some way, or the entire universe is contained in every single one of us, right? And that's, I think, a very interesting. It's like a hologram. That's another way. The scientists might call it a holographic universe, which is, it's just two different ways of saying the same thing. That's the same topic. But I think, we are inseparable from our environment. And I think that because we have the ability for self-inquiry, that by itself, the fact that I can say that there is a separate self here is an immediate separation from the environment that we're inseparable from. So I think one thing that we probably should do genuinely is to regain that connection with the environment, the universe itself, right? We are part of it and we hold ourselves. We don't call human habitats nature, even though it's just as nature as an anthill or a beehive, right? They're just out there building their shit. We're just here building our shit. This is just how we do it. It is nature. It can be disruptive of other types of nature, but then in 20 years, nature adapts, So the thing is, I think, and this filters it down into what and why I think consciousness is sort of fundamental, right? Is that it's just how adaptable everything is. I think that I like the definition, that guy, that author, Itzhak Bentov. And if you need the book, I can give, if we need to cite the book, it's Stalking the Wild Pendulum. Another thing, this book was really inspirational on me because it's not, he doesn't just present the Big Bang as the moderate continuous bang. He has theories on everything. And that really resonated with me because so do I. So do we all, right? Oh man, I tangented too many times and lost track. Oh, consciousness. He used a very simple definition for consciousness, which really resonated, which is range of response, right? It's consciousness is your range of response to your environment. Every different type of animal equipped with a nervous system, or every different kind of tree, or every different kind of crystal or mineral, which may be living too, who knows, right? It's just on different temporal scales. They all have a different range of response to the environment. Plants will always grow not just towards water, but towards the sound of water, right? They're responding to their environment. That indicates some kind of consciousness. The only thing I added to that was awareness, because we don't necessarily respond to everything we're aware of. But I think range of response and awareness is a good baseline definition for consciousness. And I can't think of anything that has a greater range of response and awareness than evolution itself. It's responsible for all of the biodiversity out there. And yeah, I mean, it's a mind boggling. It's way beyond human intelligence, but I think there's an intelligence to it, right? Well, maybe not intelligence, but consciousness, right? It's aware, like what responds to the environment more than evolution. You know, I think nature itself, we maybe talked about this a little earlier, that entropy is a bitch. I think that entropy should be taught at the same time that evolution is, because if we're only taught entropy, then that gives us a pretty hopeless view of the world. Like, oh, everything is breaking down. But I think that there's the counteraction to that is evolution itself, because that brings it into order. You know, that is what is bringing the universe into order. That's what grows new life. And I think there are societal analogs to that too, because everything reflects everything else. I think love is the societal version of evolution, and that hate is societal entropy. I mean, everything reflects everything else. If you and the pattern is fractal. You just have to see at what levels the pattern is stamped, right? You know, so I think that I don't even remember what question. Did I answer your question? Did I answer the question?
I think so, but it's just, every question leads to more questions, because there really are so few answers. The
Yeah,
many millions and billions of pages written over the last 1,000 years,
sure.
you know. Um, Something that stuck out when you were talking, you said that, plants show
Hmm.
that they grow toward running water.
Not
Uh,
just water, but they did an experiment where there was no water involved. They put a little Y tube beneath the plant so it could grow two different directions, and they put a speaker at the base of one of the fork, on the base of the second fork, and the plant grew toward the sound of water every time. There wasn't even water there. We know that they have sensors to detect water, but it has some kind of sensor to respond to the sound of water without there being water there. So there's more to it than that,
well,
right? They
relative to consciousness maybe of a plant, um, that adaptation seems more just linked to survival of that species, right?
sure, sure. Well, the
Um,
only thing I'm proposing with that, I mean, yeah, it is for survival. Everything at some level was there for survival, besides like our tool making, which aided in our survival greatly, but that accelerates our adaptation. Um, it just imply like to me, it imply like I'm just using that base definition of consciousness, range of awareness and response. And if plants are aware of the environment and respond to it, then I think that indicates some level of consciousness. There are other studies. I mean, they've had a recent study where they've caught somehow plants communicating. I don't remember how. It was either some sort of chemical discharge or some sort of like extremely not even, not within the human visual field, but some sort of bioluminescent flashes that they could somehow perceive one another. I mean, um, like octopuses, for example, their whole skin, like however they are able to mold their skin to reflect the environment that they're in, a camouflage, their whole skin is a photoreceptor. And I think leaves might be that same way too. I mean, they're there to capture light, so they might also be photoreceptor capable. So they may be able to do some sort of bioluminescent thing that we're just unaware of and communicate. Um, so yeah, I think that that's just circumstantial evidence of consciousness, right? I think that plants and I think they act on a different temporal scale, though. Like if like this morning, I missed watering my plants this morning, so I did it this afternoon, and one of them was getting pretty wilted. I put water on it. It doesn't immediately perk up, but like 10 minutes later, it takes a while for the capillaries and vascular action to get water everywhere. But when we drink water, it's okay. Well, now it's in and it's whoops. It takes a while to get around too. But I think they just operate on a different temporal scale. They react more slowly. We know they grow towards sunlight, and they music makes them grow better apparently too. I mean, I think that shows response to the environment, but it's just on such a slow temporal scale that it's difficult for us to spot or even fathom. It operates on a different time scale than we do. For us, a day is a thing. Like a day for us might only be an hour for them, right? They're just on a very slow temporal scale, but I think they show evidence of consciousness.
Well, if you do want to try this again, I'd love to hear more from you about maybe the evolution of consciousness from the Big Blip
Oh,
to
yeah.
2025. I think that's a little too much to bite off today. But
Agree.
in the meantime, for today, maybe another 15 minutes or so before I need to get moving.
Okay.
Uh, where do we go from here in this conversation? Is there any other topics you'd like to cover, or maybe preview for next time?
Uh, nothing comes to mind. What is your aim? I don't know what the normal topics are, or
There
if
is no such thing.
yeah.
I have on this show. This is episode I want to say 21 or 22 of this show. Um, but on my channel, I have 3 or 4 shows now, and I've done about 200 episodes in, well, I don't know, not even 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
How long has it been now? 2022, I think I started October. Um, the show that I'm publishing this one on, I've got authors, poets, uh, teachers, a former Navy submariner. I've got a former special operations helicopter pilot. It's sort of everything but my other Between the Levees podcast, which is about the career I work in, maritime logistics. Um,
On the river, yeah. Okay.
so I've got 100, I don't even know how many, 160 something episodes of that show.
Nice.
That's been the primary focus since I've started this whole thing. But
Yeah.
I've got 4 more episodes in the can that I actually recorded about 4 years ago. Um, 3 episodes with a New Orleans-based or previously New Orleans-based musician, and another with a professor from Boston University. If I can find that raw footage, I'll shoot you a Dropbox link to look over that one.
Okay.
That may be a little while before I publish it, but those are kind of. I'm just trying to get my I guess my feet wet again in
Sure.
in this show, thinking outside the levees
Right.
because that other show has been the job, and also another project I intend to do, which I've mentioned on a few episodes or a few entries on this stuff. This gentleman was on my Between the Levees podcast. He was a steam engineer on uh, a riverboat. He's passed away this year, actually, sort of
Oh,
unexpectedly, and
yeah.
I told him I would record the audiobook of this. So
Oh,
that's going to be a pretty big um, undertaking when the time comes. So
sure.
I find that this podcast idea developed when I wanted to write a history of the maritime industry on a certain region that I was dispatching at the time for work. And it blossomed into this, Joe Rogan. I don't know what you think about him. It doesn't really matter. But
Hmm.
Rogan started in his basement. Bill Burr was calling from a payphone at an airport, talking to a voicemail when he started. So
Right.
I figured I can get this little grassroots thing started up over Zoom. It's not that big of an investment for the year,
Right.
but this project has no real direction. It's just meeting interesting people and giving them a platform to share what they're doing.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, that's about the extent of what I've had to share here today, man. I think we covered quite a bit of ground.
Okay.
But I would be interested in doing this again if you compile your thoughts, maybe some sort of presentation almost
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
the,
I
the
get. I get a
evolution
little.
the evolution of
Sorry.
of consciousness from, as you call it, the big blip. I like that.
Yeah. 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 I can. I can. I'll try to make some notes. I mean, I have a lot of different sort of discrete topics. That's the thing, right? Like this is kind of how the writing process goes. And it's really just a free flow stream of consciousness, trying to, trying to get tapped into it and then saying whatever words occur, right? I know the words are mine, but see, that's the thing that's kind of interesting about it. Like, most of this stuff is coming intuitively, right? I do read a lot about it, but something started happening a few years ago is that when I started, especially after I had done I did meditation for a lot. I mean, I still do it but now I don't really have to do as much sit down meditation. Like every minute is meditation, just a particular way, a mode of paying attention, right? The Buddha didn't sit down and meditate. The Buddha was meditating at all times. It's just a mode of attention. In that sense, I mean, it's necessary to sit down and do it if you can't do it, but it takes a lot of practice. And I'm not there either. I don't know what that guy experienced, but when I tune into it and the words sound and feel right in some sense, and I have no way to back most of it up, right? These are crazy theories, but it happened at some point in time that it was in April of 2022. The words just started flowing. And at first it was like 40 pages in a month, then it was 80, then it was 100, 120 pages a month for 6 or 8 months. It just happened. And the thing is, right, most of the writing came from I would sit down to read, and then I would read a sentence or two, and then I would always I read everything as it, like, I'm reading it deliberately. I'm like, if this is true, then what is the implicit on top of it, right? Here's what it explicitly says, but what is implicit from this that's written? And that's where a lot of my writing comes from, is that I assume that what I'm reading is true because somebody wrote a book about it, and I intuitively pull out the implicit from it. Well, if that's true, then this is an extension of that idea. And same thing, I watch crazy shit on YouTube, and the same kind of flow starts to happen. And these conversations, it's kind of the same way. So I never know what exactly is going to come out, but it just all tuning into that intuitive stream, I guess. Well, the stream of consciousness, right? That's there. So yeah, for sure we can cover that. I have a lot of topics and theories. I think that like, for example, even the most crazy, like the Buddha being enlightened in the moment, he still had a human body, and there had to have been a corresponding nervous system state that his body was in. And so I like to do a lot of study and reading on that. A lot of my own experimentation is about nervous systems in general, because I have one of those to test things out on. So I've done a lot of experimentation with conditioning and reconditioning and deconditioning, and I think that that's a big important topic that we can talk about. I think the magic, psychic, and UFO connections, I think all of that stuff, and I say this in all earnesty and in good faith, that I think magic is real. What else is a corporate logo, right? If you see a fast food logo, and I won't name any of them, they're all the same. They all have the same, they're all sort of archetypically the same. They're built with the same colors, the same sort of aesthetics. I think that's a magical sigil, because you look at it and it alters your reality. When you see it, you salivate and become hungry and crave that. That's what magic is. What else would it be, right? And psychic stuff too. Whenever someone says hurtful words to you, and you feel it in your emotions. That's a psychic attack. That's what it is. Like when we try for telepathy, I think that's going to be a feeling in your body. You're not going to hear that person's words in your head, in their voice. It's going to be a feeling in your body that you know what they're thinking without necessarily knowing the words. I think all of that stuff is real. And those are, well, because I've seen it because this is my experience. That's why I've seen it with my eyes. And it doesn't change the way that the world is. It just explains it from a different viewpoint, right? And I think that's important to be able to do. So I think there's a bunch of topics we can really crack into, and as long as we're able to make arrangements for it. I'll try to be a little, we'll try to keep it a little more focused perhaps on the specificity of the topic. Okay, let's stick to this, and any tangents. But that's the thing, right? Like I said early, what I'm finding is that the more I talk about any of these topics, the more they lead to the other topics. That's why I think it is one big sort of theory of ineffability, and it's all related. It's all the same thing. And I think in a nutshell, it all boils down to, and this is how the quantum physicists would have said it, although meditators and prayers say it differently, that this is a consciousness created reality. I mean, we're like your cognitive behavioral therapist will tell you to recontextualize your thought and your life will get better. But a magician knows if they recontextualize their thought and use different words to describe it, then their life is going to get better. So it's all really linked together in that sense, you know? So I think that this is a topic as broad as the universe. And I think I consider it all one topic. So even though it sounds tangential, it's, you know, it's one thing leading to the other because it all is interconnected.
Well, sir, I do look forward to exploring those very topics with you here as we go. I do appreciate your time
Absolutely.
here this afternoon. Glad we could finally get this done.
Yeah, me too. And let's plan for a shorter gap. Let's plan for a week or two, maybe, or three, whatever. I don't know. I'm not setting a time frame now. It's arbitrary anyway. But let's try for sooner than later to get the next one going.
Okay.
If you want, and we can do in person too. You know, that might be way easier.
We'll see.
Face to face conversations are a lot of fun. You know.
Yeah, I haven't tried that yet as far as this podcast goes, but I'm certainly not against it. So I know we want to live about an hour apart, so we'll make something work.
These topics are an extension of the conversation I've always wanted to have, but never get to have it because it keeps getting interrupted, right? But it is the conversation of a lifetime. It's lasted all my life. It's all I've ever written and talked about with my friends and anyone else. So it's all very interesting to me. That's why I was driven to the writing. But at any rate, yeah, thank you for arranging this, and we'll get it together again soon, Tim. Appreciate you.
We will keep in touch, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Later, dude.
This has been a production of Where You At Studios, LLC.